In 1915, black laborers working in Boca Raton were offered the opportunity to purchase pieces of land and begin a community in the area known today as historic Pearl City. Over time, these pioneers built homes, churches, businesses, and schools, developing the area into an important chapter in black history here in South Florida. Our story begins in Macedonia African Methodist Episcopal Church.
Alex Hughes was credited for acquiring the land at Macedonia AME Church that we currently reside in today, built back in 1918. It is the oldest church in Boca Raton. It has been through several stages of improvement since its beginnings. We have an altar that serves a few purposes. One of the purposes is we have an altar call where members can come up and kneel for prayer. We also have First Sunday Holy Communion where members gather around to take the Holy Sacraments here at the altar. Enjoy the tour, look around, make yourself at home, seize the moment, because it's not every day that you can come and find heritage in a city over 100 years old.
My name is Dorothy Overstreet. I've been right here in Pearl City since I was 10 years old. My grandfather brought us down here on a truck, and we went down to the Albury house. We stayed there for a while because that was my grandfather's sister. Then my mother moved to a farm. Then we lived there for quite a while. Then my mother brought property in Pearl City, and we built a house over there on 12th Street. We lived there until my mom and father died, and we sold that to Ebenezer. Then I came here, wasn't anything here. We came in a truck with nothing but dirt road, no lights, none of that. I went to school right here in Pearl City for a while. The school was sitting right on this property right here next door. My mother used to be a member of this church. They would bake pies, do chitlins and all that, and sell them out through the church. They would go out on Old Dixie and sit up out there and sell pies, cakes maybe, ice cream, they churned ice cream, all that, chitlins. They made dinners and sold them back in them days. That's how we really started out with this church, selling dinners.
My name is Marie Demery Hester. I was born in 1947 on 11th Street, and we now call it Pearl Street. The house that I was born in is no longer there, but I built a new house on that property. Then my most fond memory was my grandmother, Belle Demery. And Belle Demery came to Boca from a little backcountry town and right on the Georgia line. And when she came with a lot of children. My grandmother had 14 children. She hadn't reached number 14 when she arrived here, but when she arrived here, she lived on Palmetto Park Road, what's now Palmetto Park Road. It was nothing but woods. So she was living in a thatch hut on Palmetto Park Road until she could save enough money to buy property in Pearl City. She had to save $50 in order to purchase a property that I now live on. But my grandmother was like the matriarch. She was real rough and tough with her kids. She didn't take a lot from them. She built the little house across the street at 135, and there ended up with 14 kids. And how did she put 14 children in that house? I do not know. All I do recall as a small child is she was very, very good to us, and all of them, every Sunday, they all came. But we spent our time fishing and hunting when I grew up. I had an uncle in Miami, and every weekend we would go to Miami, and we would go to the Keys, or we would go to a small island in Miami. And he taught us a lot about survival. My father did a lot of hunting and fishing also. They would make us clean the fish and share it with the neighbors. And we did a lot of sharing in the neighborhood. Was always a rule about church. You couldn't do anything unless you would get up and go to church. My mother came to this church, but my father was a member of the Baptist church. So we would come to church at the Methodist church, and then on the evening program, they had church all the time in this community. In the evening, we would go to the Baptist church and sing in the choir there, and participate in activities there. And they had a organization called the BYPU, and all of that group of kids would get a chance to interact with other people outside of this neighborhood by going to programs for the BYPU. But I enjoyed it all. I was baptized in the Baptist church, and then because of my grandfather insisted that I be baptized in the Baptist church, although I joined the Methodist church. And once I was baptized in the Baptist church, then they had a program one Sunday, and they baptized me in the Methodist church. So I've been baptized in both churches.
But it was one of the most amazing things. I can't even remember any fights that we had growing up, and I'm sure there were fights and disagreements, but I can't remember. They were all beautiful memories. Everybody helped each other. And then, you know, it took a neighbor, everybody said take a neighborhood to raise a child, and I remember my mom would say, y'all stay home, don't go anywhere. And I never will forget, one of my neighbors would tell my mom, I saw you cheering down the street. They sure have grown up. And little did they know, they was telling on us that we had left the house. But, you know, it was fun. And I remember Miss Nora Simmons, one of the founders of a Macedonian church. She used to bring us in her living room and sit on her couch and teach us the Bible. But they had a bell on the side of the church. And we had to ring the bell because people didn't have clocks. You rang the bell to let people know it's time for church. But if somebody died, you tolled the bell. So when we go out there to ring the bell, we were so scared that we was going to ring it too slow, and they'll think that somebody had died.
And I had a good life coming up. We didn't have much. My mom had 13 children. My mom and daddy was very hardworking people. I remember when out west Boca, out there across the tracks over there, way out west, I guess, where Town Center Mall is now. Back out there, they used to lease out land for people to farm and to grow things, and my daddy had all this stuff. We grew bell peppers, we grew green beans and cucumbers, and he had enough children to go pick his stuff so he could take it to the market, and we fed our family. And it was dirt roads here, I remember that. But when they finally paved the street and they had a street light, we used to go sit up under the street light right across from my mama's house. We used to sit up under the light and play jack stones, you know, and shoot marbles. I shot marbles with the boys.
And I had two brothers, just three of the children, and when we went out west down to Boca and there was nothing there but one house sitting up in Orange Grove. I thought it was lovely. We played together. We had to walk up here to Pearl City to school, but I didn't mind that either, because we played along, coming and going, you know, we walk along there. We were only one there. My daddy and his three children, there's three of us, my two brothers and myself. And it was nice. We'd go all out through the orange grove, pick oranges, come back. If we did, Mama made us clean up our mess we made, which I guess we were supposed to do it. That was fun. To me, I had never seen oranges grow until we got to Florida. And boy, it was really exciting. You just don't know how exciting, how much fun it was to us down there. It's almost 70 years in Emerald City. 70 years. My parents bought and built a little shack. And from a little shack, that years passed, that shack grew into a decent home. Now he has a decent home, thank God.
The Bible lets us know that people perish for lack of knowledge. And what Sister Overstreet and the Albury family and the Cooper family, they bring rich heritage to the church and knowledge so that we can continue for another 100 years.
There was black businesses in Pearl City. There were black businesses. There was, on the south end was Willie White's Groceries and Restaurant. There was Dolphus, Barbershop, and Pool Hall, Bar. When you're further, you ran across up on
hairdresser, Miss Ted.
Yeah, the hairdresser, Mrs. Ted. Then you had Spain, what was actually called the Sundress.
Yeah.
The Sundress is where Tom originated from, and it did Tom real. But further north, you had like 3 other juke joints. You know, you had Goddard's, you had Willie White's, you had Jimmy Goddard. He had the gas station. He gave coal oil, you know, kerosene, pump gas. Then he built this apartment complex. There were black businesses. The black businesses are no longer there. Where, you know, like they vanished in terms of Dixie Highway expanded, took those buildings away.
Hi, I'm LaJune Goddard, and welcome to the Tree of Knowledge. This tree serves as more than a physical beauty. This is where the elders from the community would gather, and the kids from the community would come and listen to their stories and listen to life skills. Also, I remember as a kid climbing up in this tree. Now I won't try it, but I remember as a kid climbing up in this tree and just feeling safe. And this was a gathering place where people in this community could come together without being threatened. They could come and laugh and play cards underneath the tree, and also board games. We would get our meal from the local restaurant right here and come in the tree and sit down and eat and just have a good time. So this tree served more than just a tree, but it has a lot of memories as well. People would gather on this tree and listen to who they called the professors. One of the professors was my dad, Homer Goddard. Other professors was Amos Jackson, and then you have Richard Goddard. And many of these professors in this neighborhood would come sit underneath this tree. Otis Brown sit underneath this tree and teach us life skills on what to do and what not to do. It was all positive energy coming from this tree and from those who spoke life and impacted our lives for a lifetime.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the contents of their character. Martin Luther King, August 28, 1963. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Martin Luther King, Jr., Letters from Birmingham Jail, 1963. Sooner or later, all the people of the world will have to discover a way to live together in peace, a method which rejects revenge, aggression, retaliation. The foundations of such a method is love.
The different people donated money to build this, and this is one of the most beautiful monuments, MLK monuments, in the county of West Palm Beach, and maybe also in the region. They sold bricks and plaques, and like if you see the benches that they have here, they have plaques on them, and on the ground, each one of the bricks for different prices people could purchase to raise the funds to build this.
Welcome to Ebenezer Missionary Baptist Church, and we want to have a little time to show you what we are about. Come with me. This is one of the oldest churches that's established here in Boca Raton and Pearl City, one of the black churches. It's been here for 102 years, established in 1918. The first pastor was the Reverend J.H. Dolphus. And from that time on, we've been in Pearl City, establishing community, the men in the community. After they got off of work, they would come to the church and build a church, lay bricks, lay the foundational structures. And the wives and the ladies in the community will provide refreshments for them. So this has always been a close-knit church, a family church, a community church. And right now to this day, we still feel that bond and that connection to the community.
I also remember us going over on the beach on a holiday where somebody would bring a grill and they bring a jukebox and they would cook out over on the beach, and the whole community would be involved. And, it was a good community. It was a sharing community.
140 12th Street is where I was born, September 23rd, 1928. I'm now 91 years old. And God has been good to me. As far as our church here, this church originated 101 years ago over on 10th Street. It's where it was at the beginning. We call it a bush harbor. It was made with quite a bit of palmettos on the outside, and that was in 1918, November 1918, when this church was organized. And I remember when it was on 10th Street. It moved from 10th Street to 11th Street, then from 11th Street to here on 12th Street, which is now called Ruby. But I remember all of those years. My uncle, the Reverend J.H. Dolphus, organized this church the third Sunday in November 1918. His wife was named Lois Dolphus, and his wife is the one who named this church. Originally, I was a member of the Historical Society, Historical Preservation Board. Right. Okay. So I made sure that whatever happened, we could keep our land in here, because from the beginning, they wanted to buy us out when there was nothing in here and move us up around Yamata Road, all the blacks in here, because this is a strategic piece of property. And they wanted still. I get letters every week of people that want to buy my property here in Pearl City. But I just would like to see the children of the parents that have property still in here preserve that property. And because we were made at a Historic Preservation Board, it's a member, we can always keep the property in here and not get bought out. We had nothing much, and so what we had, we cherished it. And in here, the parents made sure that their children went to church, had good moral standards, and we didn't have to worry about locking the door, because of the fact that the parents train up the children in the way they should go. And I have those fond memories that you can go to anybody's house and walk right in almost. We used to, when we had ice box, iceman come, put ice in the box, nobody at home, come in, and if he saw a Coke and he wanted one, he'd leave his nickel and get the Coke and keep going. God is the answer. Trust in God and lean not to your own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him and let him direct your path. That is what I would say to anyone.
My name's Howard Spain. I'm the grandson of Mr. Alex Hughes. Hughes was my grandfather. They named this park Alex Hughes after him. Alex Hughes moved to Boca Raton in 1914 from Deerfield Beach, Florida. He worked many years as a farm laborer and was the first person to build a home in Pearl City. It was primarily through his efforts that the first churches and school for the Pearl City residents were built. The establishment of these two cornerstones helped transform Pearl City from a mere collection of houses and temporary quarters into a cohesive and vibrant community. In 1972, the city of Boca Raton recognized the significant achievement of Mr. Hughes by naming a park in his honor, and that's why this park is named Hughes Park. And so he was really active in the community in helping others and in wanting to improve the neighborhood, and it was concerned about the kids, making sure that they got an education, they could read and write. He liked to read, and he would take us on the porch and he would read the paper and tell us to learn to read and to be studious. And not only was he a studious man, but he was a worker. He worked on the farms and as a laborer on the farms. But then Mr. Cheesebro, for some reason, liked Mr. Hughes, my grandfather, and not only did he have him working on the farm, but he also had him working at his home. And he would clean up around the yards, and he would do work around there. And then he would take me down there sometimes, and I would rake up leaves, and he taught me to work, and he taught us to work. And all the kids that he helped raise, they workers. Everybody was workers. You know, he believed in working. The other thing I remembered about him, he was really famous for his lilies. In front of Cheeseboro's property, he had a section that he would grow lilies. And he would grow lilies there every year people would come from all around to buy lilies from him. As a matter of fact, there would be articles in the paper about him and his lilies that he would sell. And as a matter of fact, he was kind of famous for those lilies that he would raise. We thank God for him. I thank God for the heritage that he was able to give us.
Florence Fuller Child Development Center started in the early 70s, 1971, and it was a place for migrant farm workers to bring their children during the day for education.
Welcome to Friendship Missionary Baptist Church, which was founded in 1949. Come on in and let me give you a tour of the church. This table here has been graced with the things that Reverend Lathan believed in from being a member here even until now. These things here we have not changed because he believed in the cross, he believed in the candles, and he believed in the cups. There's different times that he would talk about the power of the cross. The majority of the people resided here in Pearl City, Dixie Manor, Lincoln Court, because of coming off of the farm that was west of here. They worked at the farm, but then when the farm began to dismantle and all the people were leaving to go and live other places, most of them came to Dixie Manor. That's including the pastor, Reverend James Lathan, who used to pastor the church at the farm. He came here and he stayed here from 1950 until 1993. And that Sunday of 1991, Reverend Lathan asked for me. I came, and I've been here ever since. So it's a blessing. But the good thing is that a year later, in September of 1992, Reverend Lathan stood in front of the congregation and said to all the members,
He said, I've done all that the Lord has set for me to do. My time is up. He said, I have you all a pastor that's going to be here to serve you all and work with you all. That was in September 1992. 11 months later, Reverend Lathan died. First of all, the building to the south side of us was built in order for this church to have service. Then, 1 year later, the building that we are standing in now was built. And the blessed side about it is it was built and paid for as they went along. The church was gutted out and redone in 2003. And it gives us the existing look that we have inside now. However, the upholstery work that has been done in the church was done by yours truly. The original church here, after being built, all the walls were paneling. We took all the paneling off the wall. We refurbished the walls. But in order to keep it with the history, we did not change the furniture. We remodeled it, but we didn't change it.
John's mother, my aunt Lee Eunice, had 3 girls and 1 boy. And my mom, May Blanche Brown, had 3 boys and 1 girl. And we all were in an apartment complex called Dixie Manor. We were all additionally in 1 apartment. So we had 8 kids and 2 adults in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. Got our elementary education from Rodman Elementary, which was right out our front door. Rodman Elementary was. Nobody was ever late for school. We got up in time. Everybody ate breakfast. And we'd go out to Rodman. Everybody that I can think of in Dixie Manor were working people. They went out and worked whatever it was, whether it was domestic, whether it was in a grocery store, whether it was driving cement trucks, working for a place, the cement company right across the tracks. There was a meat packing place right across the tracks where both our parents worked at that meat packing place. There was a place they called Adobe Brick. Some of the fathers worked over at Adobe Brick. So it was a place of refuge, working class. And along with that, we had our recreation, additionally to being the schoolyard being right outside our front door. All the ballparks, the ball fields, basketball courts. We didn't have tennis courts. We hadn't come that far yet. But softball fields were right out of our front doors. The park was right there, out of our front door. But growing up in Pearl City itself, we thought it was great because that's pretty much all we knew. And we were satisfied. We didn't know nothing else. However, we did have dreams. We saw that there was something else. And we tried to obtain those dreams by getting an education and living as a decent citizen, growing up wanting to contribute something to life, making our claim on life, what we were going to do, what we wanted to do. And we went out and sought out for it.
Actually, Ernest is my cousin, but he's my brother. And so, as he was saying, we grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment with 8 kids, and there was unity. There was everything that we did as a family. From dishwashing to taking care of the house, and etc. We grew up in Dixie Manor, and Dixie Manor was at the time renovated from the old Army barracks. So that's how we end up being there, and that's where we live. But overall, there was a collective unity of families in Dixie Manor. Sometimes, if I can remember, some kids would get in trouble, and then some parents in the area would send them home to their mom, and their mom would discipline them, etc. But it was a wholesome time where even in the summer times we had a summer camp. We all attended Rodeman Elementary. There was a couple banyan trees that we as kids played a game. We called the game Gator. We would get up in the tree and climb the tree, and we tag somebody, and they become the Gator, and you know, just climb the trees. A sandlot football, you know, which Ernie knows quite a bit about that, and that's how we kind of got our experience being, you know, athletes playing in sandlot. So I just remember as a kid, you know, like they had a Negro baseball team, you know, that I said it like that because that's what we knew. And teams would come from Deerfield, Pompano, and play the guys in our community. And we were blessed to see, you know, baseball, you know, but the families were all connected. You know, there wasn't, and mostly everybody that we all knew came from Bus Farm. They didn't, you know, I don't really recall many other families that did not have some type of growth from Bus Farm. They came from Bus Farm and lived in Dixie Manor. But you had so many kids in Dixie Manor, tons of fun, you know. But we had a root of family with my mother and my aunt and my grandmother.
You know, the people on Butts Farm, I'm sure, and I don't know, but I'm sure they weren't making a lot of money. They were probably just surviving. I don't know if anybody ever paid rent out there. They probably were just out there harvesting the crops, getting what little bit of money that they could make, and shipping the farm materials off for the Butts family, who were making tons of money. If you go out there and see that place today, you'll never know that there was a Butts farm out there. But that is what gave me my incentive to go on, because I knew that was not something that I wanted to do the rest of my life, was pick beans or work on any type of farm. I played football at the University of Miami. I was on a full football scholarship, 73, 74, and 75. Playing on the scholarship, it could have been anybody, any other athletes that I played with on the sandlot fields in Pearl City. And even I was at the University of Miami for 3 years. After the 3 years there, I was drafted in the 5th round by the first year Seattle Seahawks. I was at Seattle for 1 year, and I went to New York, and I was at the New York Giants for 3 years. So I have 4 years in the National Football League. And this was something that I had always said that I was going to do, is become a professional athlete. I asked God for 2 things, and I'll tell you one of them, and that was to let me become a professional athlete, help me to perfect my skills to become a professional athlete. And I always wanted to represent where I came from, Boca Raton. I never forget where I came from.
We came to Florida, a place called Butts Farm, which is on the west side of Pearl City, the place where we lived at that particular time. Now, we lived on that farm for many years, maybe like 11 years or something like that. We went to school in the place that's called Pearl City, and that school that you all were talking about. And we went there the whole time that we lived on the farm.
When we went to school, there was no such thing as middle school then. We went to junior high, which was connected to the high school. And she was talking, the one thing I thought about, she said we rode the bus every single day. We rode that bus every single day, passing Seacrest High School, an all-white school, passed by, made our left turn, and headed west to Carver High School.
And before we got there, we had to go further out where children lived on a farm.
Yes, pick up more children.
Pick those kids up. Now, you know, she mentioned about us having a very strong mother. We were born in Louisville, Georgia. We were not original Floridians. But when our father was killed in a car accident, my mom eventually moved us down to Butts Farm, which is part of Boca Raton.
She had some cousins there. That's how she came here. She just packed up her little brood, and I mean, she had a brood, And she came because she knew she had to make a living for these little kids, and she knew that these kids depended on nobody but her. She was really, well, we didn't realize then that she was such a strong, wonderful woman. We didn't realize it then. But our mother always told us as children that it was her prayer that she would not pass away before all of her children got grown. And I want you to know God blessed her, that she did not pass away before all of her children got grown. All right, Julia.
Our mother getting us up in the morning, cooking breakfast for us, and she would also cook our lunch because we had to take lunch to school. And then we would take, I remember we would take biscuits sometime. She would make biscuits sometime. And then I just remember just going to school and just enjoying the teachers and the kids that were from Pearl City that lived there. And we would just mingle with them, and then for the bus to come and pick us up to take us home. But there were times that they called it the bean bus from Bus Farm. The bean bus would come and we would just go to school half a day. And the bus would come and pick us up from school, and we would take us back to the farm, and we would get dressed and go to the bean field. But I just remember those days because they were really happy days, you know, with my mom and my oldest sister. Our oldest sisters were like mothers to us, you know, when our mom was not there. The holidays, Easter, Christmas, days like that. Mom always went out and bought us new outfits. And, you know, and that's what we wore to church. And we just did things that, you know, all of the other kids did. So really to us, the kids in Pearl City, we were no different from them.
They just lived in a different place.
And most of them had daddies. We did.
Yeah, that's true. And see, we were all right because in living on that farm, we had all the many activities that the other kids were having, you know. There was a church. There was a barbershop out there at one time. There was a church. We always had good preachers out there. Is that right?
The barbershop. My brother always got a high right and a low left. That was a haircut.
That was a style.
I think that's all Mr. Richard could do.
And there was a cafe out there. There was a grocery store out there.
Nursery.
There was a nursery out there. Whatever was needed, we had it. Well, my brother decided that he wanted us to live in the city. So he found us a place to live.
You know, I remember the day that he came to pick us up.
Yes.
I remember he came with this truck, and I remember Mama saying, "Oh, I just don't know." And our brother Buddy just started putting the stuff on the truck. He had got the house, and he wasn't waiting for Mama to make any decision because we know she would have said no. That we were poor. We sure didn't realize we were poor then, because my mother would make a sweet bread. I mean, that was our dessert on Sunday, and she would always prepare a Sunday dinner. And then one of the sisters mentioned our two older sisters. Those girls had a responsibility because they had to help Mama with raising us. Picking beans was, I didn't see it as a bad thing, but I was not a housebound person as Louie. She loved being in the house. On Saturdays, one of us had to stay home to clean the house. And she and I would often switch up because she didn't want to go to pick beans and I'd rather go because I wanted to be with my friends.
And it was not like, you know, our mother would say, you know, we were going to the bean field, but it wasn't like, and you need to pick, you know, she didn't put a limit on us how much money we need to bring home or how many hampers of beans we need to pick in the bean field. So we went and we picked beans, but we had a good time in the bean field too.
Do the best that you can. And the people that own that farm, as I think back over our lives there, I mean, I do not see them as bad people. I really do not.
I lived with my grandparents, Marvin Jenkins and Matilda Jenkins. They called my grandma Miss Tilly. They came from Georgia to Butts Farm. They lived on Butts Farm for a while, and then they bought a house here in Pearl City, where I was born. We used to pull weed up out of the out of the backyard, and we played house, like made our dolls out of a soda water bottle and put the weed in there and combed and brushed the weed's hair like it was real. We played jump rope, hopscotch, and we rode our bicycles, and we watched black and white TV. We had to stay within our community. As long as we were in our community, things were good. But, you know, like my uncle, and because he was older, used to go outside of the community and used to kind of get in trouble because they didn't want him outside of the community. I didn't know about it because I was younger, but then he used to come home and tell my grandparents, you know, how the police would treat him, and because he was on the other side of the tracks, like they call it, the other side of the tracks, how they used to treat him, and, you know, because he was there. Used to beat him, you know, and stuff like that. Wow. The store, Mr. Willie White was his name. He used to sell like little products, canned goods, and little odds and ends like that. But we would have to, my grandmom would go to Deerfield to do the biggest part of her shop, and they didn't have a store where the black people could, you know, shop. So she had to go to Deerfield. Mr. Willie White used to just sell little odds and ends, you know, so you can make it through.
I would think Pearl City was a really good background place. You know, you can go a lot of places in life. Like, I've been some everywhere, you know, even from here all the way to Maine, from Maine out to Texas, California, but there's nowhere like just, I seen that I would never ever want to stay in Pearl City and come back home, you know. Sometimes we play football in the middle of the street. We played 15 terrorists in the project against 11th Street, and that was really at a young stage in our life that we did that. But growing up in Pearl City was real good. And the guy lived next door named Mr. Jimmy Goddard. He was building this house next door. So, and he had a nephew named Homer. Homer Goddard was building the house. So when I used to come in off the bus, I used to stop by and start helping them nail up what they call sheetrock there with the nails. You had to nail up with a hammer. So when I get out of school, I'll go by there and start nailing. So it was Homer and another guy named Sonny Bussey that was helping Homer out. So Mr. Jimmy, he told Sonny Bussey, he says, Sonny, I think I'm gonna let Lil Anderson come by here in the next couple of days and finish this up, cause you be here all day, and Lil Anderson come here this afternoon, and he do more than you do in the whole day. But I wasn't trying to take his job or nothing, but that's just the way things was growing up. My grandmother, actually, she raised me since I was age 9 years old, and she took it all away from me, you know, from that point till I got in high school. She was, you know, a very strict lady. You know, she's very nice, very strict, but you know, they didn't take no foolishness. You know, they meant what they meant. You know, I remember a couple times that she asked me to get up and go in there and wash dishes and something. I started mumming or saying something, and she hit me across the head with a stick and said, "I'll break your neck," and blew it back together if you ever mumble again. So that was the last whooping that I got. Lathan, you know, I just can remember he can preach and pray real good, you know. I mean, that's one thing I can remember about J.A. Lathan. You know, he's one of my old time preachers, you know. And you know, he really can, as we can say, he can set a church on fire, you know.
During the holidays, it was really, really, really good, because they're down in Boca, they used to come over on Christmas Eve with the siren on the back of the fire truck. And we would have a good time right there at the school. They would give us presents and food and everything else. Yeah, we had teachers come from up north, I would say around West Palm Beach, Riviera Beach, and a few of them lived right back there at a house. And they come down from the north, they come here, and they stayed at the house that was rented out that they stayed to, and they would stay the full week. Then they would go back on the weekend, But come the next beginning of the next, week, they comes down here and they teach. There was Mrs. Brown, there was Mrs. Young, there was Hall, there was Mrs. Denson, and there was some more that came in after I left. But that's just the way it was.
When I came to Florida, I was 4 years old. I remember riding on the train and being afraid because I had never seen such a big train before. And when we got to Boca Raton, we had nowhere to live, nowhere to go. And there was a very old woman. We walked from the train station to Pearl City. My mother told the boys to hold my hand. I had 2 brothers and 1 sister. Unfortunately, my 2 brothers died early. When we got to Pearl City, I don't know what led my mother to an old lady that we called Mama Carrie. And Mama Carrie let us spend the night at her house. And she had an old upstairs building in the back of her house. And she told my mother rather, that we could live there. We stayed with her until my mother met her second husband, Albert Stevens. By the way, my father died when I was 9 months. And we moved here after staying with my grandmother for 3 years. So I was about 4 years old, and I stayed there until I graduated from college at A&T University in Greensboro, North Carolina. I knew I had to make it. We were like a triangle. This is all we had in Pearl City that I remember. We had the church on one end. We had the school on the other end. And we had the family. Church, family, school. That's all we had in Pearl City. That's all we knew in Pearl City. At Ebenezer Baptist Church, my family started out there. Later on, after I had graduated from there, my mother moved to Friendship. The church split. Half of the people left Ebenezer. I don't even remember the reason, but we became members at Friendship. And I'll never forget the day I was baptized. We did not have equipment in the church, and they took me down to the beach. That was one of the times the black people could go to the beach, is for baptism. They took me to the beach, and when the deacons dumped me, somehow I slipped, and I could not swim. I think I was about 12 years old. And that stopped all the shouting and the amen and the hallelujah, and they were going, "Get that girl, get that girl." And I heard mother going, "Oh, my baby, my baby." But I survived, so I guess I'll always be spiritual because I never forget that. Right there in the Atlantic Ocean on Boca Raton Beach. My mother worked Butts Farm. She picked beans night and day and waited for us to come on the truck. Mr. Butts would send a truck to Rodman Elementary School, and you had to leave school and go and pick beans until dark. We went to the field with our mother. We had a honey bun for lunch. We didn't have a lunch program like we have now in the schools. And that's how we got the house. Mother saved. They didn't pay you in money or a check. You got a little card. For every hamper of beans, I think my mother would get about 25 cents. She was constantly saying, "Come on, pick the beans, because we call them hampers, but they were baskets, and they had to be picked clean, no leaves. And my sister always got in trouble because she was so slow. She could not pick as fast as we could. But my mother saved every ticket
And I remember we were living upstairs in Mama Carrie's house. I still don't think she was charging Mother anything. That was one thing that I remember about Pearl City, is the people there worked together and looked after each other. If someone died in your family, the whole community would know it. Because at Ebenezer Baptist Church, they had a big bell in the foyer that they would pull, and it would go dung, dung, and somebody died. And they would all get together and come to your house and provide support and food. They would even take up a collection. I remember when my grandmother died, and they were just terrific. I mean, this would be a much better world today if people were like we were growing up in Boca. You always had the church and the people, they always came together. Even when we left Rodman to go to middle school, they called it now, it was junior high then, we had to go to Delray. We had no middle school, we had no high school. We had to be bused to Delray. I remember standing out in the rain waiting for the bus at Rodman, bus carrying the white children, and that was the only time I saw white people, were on the school bus riding by. Sometimes they would throw trash from the bus when they would pass by the black kids standing there on the road. I remember that vividly. And never do I remember getting a new book. We were always given the books from the white school. I call them hand-me-down books. And sometimes you would be sitting there reading the book and you'll see the word, "Hello, nigger." And I didn't understand. Why did we have to get? I just knew there had to be a change. But in Boca Raton, my mother would always say, you have to stay in your place. And I guess that's how they kept us until I went off to college. And I found out that it was a big world out there and there was so many things that were not right. My first year, by the way, I went to school with Jesse Jackson, and I remember when my freshman class decided to have a sit-in, because at the Woolsworth, 5 and dime they call it, would not allow us to sit at the counter. So to sit in, I was involved in that, and my mother, when she found out that I had been arrested, she called me and she said, I did not send you to school for that. She said, now your daddy, if they find out here in Pearl City that you've been involved, find out in Boca Raton that you are up there sitting in at the counters and everything, then your dad won't have a job. Mr. Ricketts has already said that they're not going to have that kind of trouble in Boca Raton, in Pearl City. But I wasn't in Pearl City. And at the university, once we got arrested, the president of the college came down and said, no more females, got us all out and everything. And it never went on my record, but I can remember. And my mother would always say, stay in your place. And when I came home that summer, after getting a taste of freedom, I went to mother sent me to the post office, and I decided to stop. It was a little store, a little Sunday store there near the post office. I went in and I ordered an ice cream cone, because black people weren't supposed to be sitting, eating, and going into these places. They only used the black people for work. You could go and clean up their houses, but you could not go. So I went in this little store and I ordered an ice cream cone, and when the lady gave me the ice cream, I sat down on the stool to eat it. And she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm eating my ice cream." She said, "You can't eat it in here." She said, "You have to leave. You have to go out and eat it." I said, "I bought it in here. There are other people sitting here." I got up, I took the ice cream, and I just threw it on the counter and walked out. When I got home and I told my mother what had happened, she said, "You are going to get your daddy fired." And I remember at that time Daddy was working for Mr. Ricketts. I don't know what Mr. Ricketts had told him, but the people in Pearl City stayed on those 3 streets. They never wanted to know why. No, I don't remember anybody ever questioning why. I remember when they built a big wall. This was up on 15th, like they were trying to divide the city. And none of the elderly people or anybody spoke up. They just said, "Oh, now they're keeping us in our place. They're fencing us in." I didn't understand why someone would not stand up and say, "This cannot be." Well, I got the feeling that the black people did not like Sheriff Brownie. Even as a growing up there, they did not like him. They would always have something bad to say about him. I did not know him. I was a kid. And you stayed in your place. You never left Pearl City. But my mother got ready to buy that property, and she did not have enough money. Now, I don't know how property was so cheap back in the day, but I have the papers and everything. Sheriff Brownie loaned my mother the $100 to buy the lot where my mother's house is now. So I said to myself, he could not have been all that bad that my mother could go and tell him, "I want to buy a house. Can you help me?" Sheriff Brownie, every year at Christmas time, would come to Rodman Elementary with Santa Claus on the fire truck and give us candy canes and a fruit in a little bag and we were just so happy because we didn't have those kinds of things. In fact, when Christmas came, I remember getting a shoebox, and my mother would order from Sears Roebuck a bag of nuts, a bag of candy, and she would go to A&P and buy apples, and the fruit man would come by in the truck and sell a bucket of oranges for 50 cents. My mother would put an apple, 2 oranges, a handful of nuts, and candy in each shoebox for the children. And you got up on Christmas morning and you got that shoebox, and it was like getting $1 million.
My mom, my auntie, my granddaddy. Now he came here for a little while, but my great-grandmama, everybody went to church here. My family went to church. This was a family church, rooted and grounded, and my family still come.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, my kids come, my grandkids come.
Okay.
Well, me and my daughter and my sister, we're in the choir together now. We sing together now. And my sisters, some come to church here. Not all of them, but the majority of them come here. Yeah. And we get together at times and we have dinner together. We do breakfast together. We enjoy each other.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's good to have a big family. Well, they used to have like choir union. The choirs would come out on, I think it was like Monday night. And different churches would come together and we would sing, and after that we'll have food to eat. Yeah. Yeah, we did that. It was fun back then. And me and my mom sung in the choir together. Yeah, and I loved that. What is this? I used to like to sing that. I can feel it deep inside. What is this? Got me feeling so good now. Whatever it is, whoa, it won't let me hold my peace. It won't let me hold my peace. God is so good. He brought us from a long ways. And guess what? He's still bringing us over.
That's right.
He's still bringing it.